Good evening, everybody. This is Mason Sims, and welcome to another edition of our show. Joining us this evening is Representative Neal Collins. He covers parts of Greenville and also Pickens County areas, and he's going to be sharing with us some of the plans for the state legislature for the upcoming year, and also discuss some of the hot topics that have been brought up over the past 5 to 6 months. Also, I know I probably have subscribers for all different sports teams. I had to bring out the orange blazer today because if you follow college football, Clemson will face the Texas Longhorns this coming Saturday. And it's very interesting because it's the first time that Clemson and Texas have ever faced head-to-head in school history. And also, if you follow my Facebook page and also some of my family members as well, we've been lifelong Clemson supporters, probably since IPTAY first was founded in the 1960s. So it'll be interesting to see how this matchup will turn out to be. And also, this isn't the first time that Kate Klubnik and Quinn Ewers have faced head-to-head as well. So, my name is Mason Sims, and let's get started. Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Mason Sims, and welcome to another edition of our show. Here with me today, I have State Representative Neal Collins. He serves parts of Greenville and also Pickens County areas. And Neal, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Yeah, and I saw y'all at the parade. Did y'all get a lot of fans and attention?
I don't know about any fans. My family and I, we had fun. Seeing the community out and about, and it was a chilly night, but being able to throw out some Christmas cakes and say Merry Christmas to a lot of people, it's always gets me in the mood for our Christmas time.
Yeah, your truck was. I like the stickers they had on your truck. Did you have it on both sides?
Yeah. It had a banner there.
Yeah, I didn't think to get another one for the side of my truck, so I think at least the driver's side, I feel like a lot of people are on that side, so that was good.
Yeah. Well, good.
Yeah. So, so there's some questions that I've asked several people around the area. One of the questions was, well, first off, is there any new plans for the state legislature coming up next year as far as new items on the agenda?
Yeah, we have and we always do. We always have a full agenda as far as goals that we have for the House Republican Caucus. As you know, we can only control what we can control, and that's in the House. We can't control what happens in the Senate. But in my 10 years there, I think each time we've had really good, solid conservative goals, and I think we've delivered on a lot of those this year or this upcoming session. Our leadership is focused on decreasing the income tax even more than we have. So just a couple years ago, we decreased income taxes from 7% down to 6%. We're currently at 6.3%. So they want to cut that even more. And I am in support of that. I'm on the Ways and Means Committee. So, and whatever way that I can help that, I think it'll help our business community. And we're growing at such a rate that our income into the state every year that I'm in there, we've had a surplus, which I feel fortunate about. Generation before me, they had to deal with budget cuts. Unfortunately, haven't had to deal with that. But because we're the fastest growing state in the nation, we do have, and we are investing in public infrastructure and public employees. But at the same time, we're focused on giving that money back to the taxpayers.
Well, that sounds great. And how long was that? Was that last session you went to? I believe it was, earlier this month. Is that?
We had reorganization 2 weeks ago. And is that what you're talking about? The reorganization?
That's right.
Okay. Yeah. We had reorganization 2 weeks ago, and it's just more of a cleaning house type of making sure that we're ready to hit the ground running on January 14th. We always return on the second Tuesday of January, and reorganization every 2 years when we have a new, House members with the elections and everything. Everybody gets their committee assignments. They get their desks, which are very important for us that have been there for a while, but making sure we're in the right spots and stuff like that. So it's more of a fun kind of first day of school year type of atmosphere with reorganization. We don't do any official business, but we get our committee assignments and where we're going to sit on the floor.
Right, and y'all are usually pretty busy up till like late spring, early summer. Is that when y'all take a few?
Yeah, a lot of people don't know our schedules. One, they think we serve in DC. We don't. We serve in Columbia. And then our official session is the second Tuesday in January through May. But we've been known to extend session really, I think 7 or 8 of my 10 years. And then we can be called into special session. And then depending on what committees you serve on. Some of my committees are year-round committees, including Ethics Committee and Education Oversight. So we have committee meetings throughout the year. But for what people think, its session is January through May, Tuesday through Thursday.
Right, and then when you're off a session, do you still get like phone calls that you answer as far as like if people have any questions or like
Oh yeah,
what do y'all do like after that time?
oh yeah, we get constituent calls and calls about bills or legislation on a daily basis. So yeah, it's a year-round daily thing, but makes it fun. Makes it fun.
Absolutely. And the next question I was going to ask you is with Trump being sworn in on Martin Luther King Day next year. So how does the state legislature or how do you plan to promote his agenda related to illegals and also the economy?
Well, first, there's a big difference with state versus federal. And, as far as federal government and federal issues, we rarely get involved on that level. It seems like all issues, even now, unfortunately, down to city and county and school board has some national flair to it. And uh, Trump or whoever the president is at the time is invoked. But it's one thing that I wish we would get away from as far as this national type of politics from the local to state to federal. We all have our sandboxes, and I try to stay in my sandbox as much as possible. I try not to get involved with school board activities or city council or county council or national level issues. But that being said, as far as whatever the federal government agenda, whatever they pass down, we are generally speaking a law-abiding state. We generally follow what are sent down to us from the federal government. So whatever policies are passed in the federal government, I'm sure our state will follow. So for undocumented immigrants, if there is something, I'm sure we will follow. As far as the economy, we have a very good economy from my viewpoint in South Carolina. We have almost no unemployment effectively. Like I said, we're the fastest growing state in the nation. And then we also have record budgets each year because of our growth. And because of companies moving in and because of the current companies, local small businesses is what we're really built on, including our firm here in Easley. Everybody seems to be doing pretty well as far as the economy is concerned. So I'm looking forward to encouraging that. And one part of that is to decrease income taxes.
That sounds great. So yeah, I didn't realize how much power, how much like the local government said affects your everyday life until I got involved about a few years ago.
Yeah.
Because
No, I think the more local you are, the more impactful you are to the community. And I wish we were, and I posted about this every day as far as voting turnout. Like, I'm glad that more people voted in the presidential election, but especially this year, we knew it was going to go Trump and we didn't have anything else on the ballot. But with our local races in June, when they were decided, we had far less people who vote. And it should be flipped, right? These are on your local races, they impact you much more so than our national government from my viewpoint and in my opinion. So yeah, I wish more people paid attention more closely to them than to national government that may or may not affect.
right, yeah, I was disappointed by the primary turnout. I think it was about the same as it was the last June primary, if not a little bit less.
It's historically the same as far as turnout. And of course, presidential elections are always the most. But yep, we need to make sure people understand that local government, in my opinion, matters more.
Right? Yeah, this all starts at the local part, and that's what affects your everyday life. Yeah. And the next one was with Trump's his plan is to cut the federal Department of Education. How do you think this will affect our state, because I know he's going to leave it up to states, right? So this affects schools and also, let's say, educators and students within the South Carolina school district.
Well, I don't know if anybody can really predict what that's going to look like and if that can happen, and I'm interested to see. And one, taking a step back, the federal government only provides about 8% of our education budget across the state. So, from a financial situation, it's relatively not going to impact if federal funding is stopped or if there is block granting to where it is given to states and states get to decide more so on what it is. But as far as the federal monies, they're also tied to a lot of it is to people with disabilities. And from that viewpoint, I don't believe that we will change very much from a state perspective. And I would hope not, that we wouldn't change too much as far as protecting the children with disabilities and making sure that they have educational access. So, practically speaking, even if we abolish the Department of Education from the federal government viewpoint, I don't know how much that's practically going to impact a local school district or a local school like Lakes and Bridges. So, I'm just interested to see. We'll cross those bridges when they come. I know it was a campaign factor, but as we see with a lot of campaign promises and stuff, sometimes reality kind of hits and practicalities come in. And like I said, we'll see what happens. We'll definitely make sure that we have the best education system that we can in South Carolina. At least that will be my goal, as it always is.
Yeah, and that's good to know too that the 8% of the funding comes from the federal government, because it seems like a lot of my coworkers, actually including administration too, they were concerned about how our school was, the future of our schools is, because we do get federal funding, and
Yeah,
I guess they just want to
yeah. I
make
mean,
sure that we're going to be okay.
and your school, the Lakes and Bridges, I mean, they are impacted. So with again federal funding, significant chunk of that is a protection of the students with disabilities. But I think the big takeaway is, I think what the public needs to understand, and that would make the average Joe blink, is that only 8% of the funding for education is from a federal viewpoint, and then the other 90% is roughly split between state and local.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I'll have to mention that to my colleagues tomorrow, because yeah, they do seem in a panic, but I'm glad that you and I had this conversation about it. I feel like it'll put them at peace of mind knowing that that's just only 8%. Yeah, and the other thing I was gonna ask you too is I know there have been, at least on the state level, I know there have been improvements as far as being selective of what kids have access to as far as books go, because it does contain some obscene material. Are there plans for next year about as far as protecting our libraries and our youth?
I haven't heard of specific bills, and I haven't had a chance to look through. We did have pre-filing this month, and today's December 16th. The last pre-filing date was December 12th of last week. So I usually go through all the pre-files and see what bills I like, what bills I don't. And then I also summarize my own. I had about 30 or 35 bills that I pre-file, and I'm going to summarize that for my constituents when I can take a moment and actually summarize things and send that out to the public. But ultimately, I haven't looked and seen what potential bills there are. For me, it's common sense to me that we don't want any obscene materials in our libraries or especially in our schools. I think, generally speaking, we do a very good job that we do keep a vast majority of that stuff out. And of course, a random book will make its way into a school or into the library. But at that point, I think adults should take over and make sure that it's removed. It's that simple to me. I think we make it way too much of a deal than what it really is. Then ultimately, it's a matter of, for me, a little bit of local control, because we are different in different states, and we are different even amongst us in South Carolina. We have different values across the state. We have different values across the nation. And I remember being in Seattle, Washington, and passing by in a big city library, and on the wall there with the glass and their display of certain books and material would not fly in easily South Carolina. And to me, that is part of the local control. So I think for the most part, we do a really good job. I know it's been a tough year and a half for school libraries and for public libraries, but my wish is that we would kind of take a step back, take a deep breath, and just make sure we're all on the same page. We don't want anything absolutely obscene, and we want that stuff removed. But at the same time, we want to protect free speech as much as possible.
Right, and with at least in Pickens County, with the library board getting as much publicity as it has, I feel like for the most part, I feel like they're moving in the right direction. At least the attention and the people being informed. I feel like that information's got out there.
Yeah, from what I've seen, and like I said, I try to stay in my own sandbox. I got enough issues on the state level as it is. So,
Right.
With the county and the county library board, and then also with our school board, I try to let those elected officials make those decisions because they're the ones that have been elected to do so.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I have to remember that too. Yeah, as far as staying in the sandbox and kind of like knowing what is kind of like a city issue and what's a county issue. I'm sure that at least dealing like with roads and stuff like that, them might kind of get pretty tricky, and that some of them might overlap. So let's see. The next one was, so what are your plans for the future? First and foremost, it seems like since you have been elected, that you seem to have a challenger. So do you anticipate someone challenging you again the next time go around?
Oh yeah, yeah. Again, if I run, I never am automatic as far as run or not. But if I run, I'm sure that I'll have a challenger, and I welcome that. I mean, it's typically somebody different, and that's what I had the opportunity to teach Intro to American Government at Tri-County Tech this spring. And what I love about our form of government is, especially in the House, we are the people's house. And if a person is upset enough with you to put their name on a ballot, then there is reason for that to be, and there needs to be an election. And I'm fully supportive of that. So I do anticipate we live in a tough spot. I don't know anybody who doesn't think that they're the most conservative people or most conservative person here in Pickens County, and then easily. And we would have a pretty big fight among the 130,000 people on who that is. And everybody has a different definition, and it hasn't occurred in my 10 years, but I am of the opinion, and I've always been of the opinion, that the Republican Party is a big tent party, and while we may disagree on certain items on the big and or 80% of it we do agree on, and we should work forward together on that instead of fighting each other. Unfortunately,
Right.
that's not the current modern culture in Pickens County or across the state or in the nation. And it's just something that I think pendulum will ultimately swing at some point back to Republicans working together. But at this point, it's not. And it's just a matter of dealing with all of that. And that's what makes serving in Pickens County fun and keeps me on my toes. I can tell you that I believe I am a better representative in sorts than some of my colleagues, because I do go through an election every 2 years, and I do hear from a number of people every 2 years about what's important to them. And if you don't have to go through an election, you don't have to do that. So to me, I sort of welcome it. It keeps me sharp. It keeps me in tune with what's going on in my hometown. And at the end of the day, it's the people's seat. So who they want to be there is who goes there. And if that's not me in the future, then so be it. But I will always view it as people seek.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I noticed too that previous opponents, it seems like they focused on the stuff that you didn't do rather than the stuff that they would do. I think they mentioned that on the New American Movement. I don't always agree with what they have, but I would say I would agree with that, because I feel like that, at least as me as a voter, I want to know the person who I'm voting for is platform, not attacking the other one, like saying what this he or she didn't do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my personal opinion when I look and vote for people is I want to know what they stand for, not necessarily bashing the other person.
Right. Yeah, it definitely seems a lot of that stuff happens in our county. Yeah, yeah, hopefully it'll calm down. I know with reorg, it might get pretty rowdy, but that's Pickens County, right?
Yep. Historically, it has been.
Yeah. So So yeah, I've heard from several sources and some elected officials that Rex Rice has thought about retiring, or at least he said this would be his last term. And if that seat were to come open, would you consider running for that in the future?
4 years from now seems like a eternity from now for me. I didn't think that I would serve in the state house. And what I've seen with my colleagues across the state over the past 10 years is everything in politics is about timing and what is currently happening and where people are in their phases of life. And a good example is, last year was an opportunity to open congressional seat, and I have a 2-year-old. I had a number of people reach out to me, but my 2-year-old is so very important to me right now, and I cherish the little time that I get with her. So, to me, what's important right now is family, and then it's community when we're talking about elected stuff. So I can't answer that. I can't answer any question on what the future holds. And I think politics is always surprising. So I don't think anybody could have guessed the past 10 years from a national viewpoint, from a state viewpoint, or from a local viewpoint. And I don't think anybody can predict the next 10 years. So we'll see. I don't say no to any doors, but at this point in time, all I'm concentrated on is my young family and trying to do the best for them and for my hometown.
Yeah, I've seen your daughter around a lot because I'm part of the running club, and she seems to like to be a part of that.
Yeah, yeah, and it's also tough going through this past primary. Fortunately, she's 2 and she can't read or understand things or hear things. What's something that's heavy on me is my primaries are always nasty, and it's not necessarily always my opponents, but national groups get involved. There was at least $200,000 spent against me this past June, and some of it was pretty nasty. And one thing that's heavy on my heart is, maybe not in 2 years, but 4 or 6 years from now, it's going to be a burden for her, which she didn't ask for. And unfortunately, that's why a lot of parents of children, both men and women, don't run, and that's a problem that we have, and that's a problem with our modern politics. Again, hopefully on that, maybe we'll change the spectrum a little bit.
Right. And I've noticed that too, even with my election. I mean, people reached out to my family and stuff for questions. I'm thinking, I'm the one running here. Don't get my family involved in this. I'm the one that's running. Uh, I just really didn't realize it kind of puts a burden on once you kind of put your name in the hat, kind of puts a burden on your friends and family as well.
Absolutely not.
So, let's see. So, is there anything else you would like to mention to your constituents and also the viewers while you're on the show?
I'll just sum up. I serve on Ways and Means, our budget writing committee, and I've only been on it for 2 years, and really fortunate. My class of 2014, I was the first one placed on it. And even before being placed on it, we had a lot to be proud of. And I know we're always negative of government, and that's just the nature, especially where we live. So much good is also being had. I mean, we have the um, highest reserves that we've ever had. We have the lowest debt we've ever had. We can constitutionally have up to 5%. We're at like 0.02% or something like that. It's ridiculously low. We have the largest income that we've had. But meanwhile, we are decreasing taxes, like I've said, and we are focusing, I think, on what matters. So we've increased in my 10 years law enforcement officers' pay by $20,000. Important for you, we increased teacher pay $20,000 in my 10 years. And this year, I'm hoping that we have that teacher pay increase for a starting teacher to $50,000. That's been a goal of Government Master, and he's been a great advocate for public teachers. So looking forward to continuing that good fiscal conservative budgets that I think had put us in a good space. And that was work of, at least 2 decades of good budgeting to get to where we are now. So I hope our legacy is 20 years from now that the state is in a good spot because of what we have decided to do this year. For me, it's always a focus on public education. We don't have a lot of public education advocates out there, and there's reason for that. There's no money behind supporting public education. It's not a big business. It's not something that makes somebody money. There are no lobbyists for public education. And for me, I think for any state success, it starts and stops with how good your public education is. Because no matter what we do, and unfortunately, we've been, even my own caucus in our own party primary, people are focused on school vouchers, which I don't think is going to improve education in South Carolina. Even with it, even if it is to pass, we will have over 90% of our students that's in public education. So we need to focus on the big items, and the big items is and will always be 90% of our students who are in public ed. And lastly, I was born and raised in a mobile home community here in Pickens County. And if it was not for education, I would not have the education that I have, the jobs that I have, and have all the opportunities that I've been blessed with. And I want that for every mobile home community kid here in Easley. And that's why I drive and commute to Columbia 3 days a week, January through June, and then another probably 30 days in the off session. What I care about is public education. That's what we'll be focused on.
Right. And my principal, Lathan Bridges, and Miss Heidi Bishop, she always speaks very highly of you.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate her. And we have Lakes and Bridges is a wonderful example of it's a public charter school that focuses on students with dyslexia, and the opportunities and the possibilities that school allows for our students and our neighboring. And I don't know the latest this year's numbers, but a number of counties and children come to that school, and even people have moved from out of state to move into that school, basically. Just a wonderful opportunity that offers a public school choice, and something that I do favor. Just a wonderful example of what we need to do as far as giving more personalized learning into our public ed.
Right. And I try to remind my students too when they get frustrated and I guess maybe how things are going in school. And I'm thinking, listen, your parents, if you get permission to come here, I mean, this is a school of choice.
Yep.
And your parents, that moved all this way for you to come to school here because they want you to have access to a high quality education.
Well, and and I completely agree with that, and even more so, it was only 7 years ago that school wouldn't be able to exist, but because of advocates, especially for Lakes and Bridges, and Judge Gary Cleary, my good friend that used to serve out of Clemson, because of their work, we've been able to change state law to allow something like Lakes and Bridges to occur. And so absolutely, I hope people don't take for granted the wonderful opportunity that we have here locally. And of course, the students don't take it for granted that we have focused on improving their lives, and despite any small challenges like dyslexia is. And I mean that in a good way.
Right. And I'm hoping too they realize even though that their learning style is different, it is possible. It is good to know too that our principal and also our assistant principal both have dyslexia, so they are good examples that it can be done.
Many very, very successful people have dyslexia, so I don't think that's a barrier at all. And now we're trying to address that, and have been at Lakes and Bridges for the past 7, 8 years or so. So it's a wonderful, wonderful school.
Absolutely. Well, Representative Collins, it was a pleasure to have you on the show again, and we'd love to have you again in the future.
All righty. Well, I appreciate the invite, Mason. And if I don't get to see you, have a wonderful Merry Christmas, and we'll see you in 2025, I guess.
Sounds good. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to you and your family as well.
All right. Take care.
You too. Bye. And that concludes our show for this evening. If you have not already, feel free to click, like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for further updates, and also follow our Facebook page as well. I hope everyone has a Merry Christmas and New Year's, and safe travels if you're going to be on the road. And also, if you have any recommendations on guests or other topics for me to cover on this podcast, feel free to post on my timeline or simply comment in the comment section on my Facebook post. Again, thank you all for watching. Good night, everybody. God bless America, and go Tigers.